Shri Rama Jai Rama Jai Jai Rama Om. 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 Yesterday we were reading the commentary on the 9th chapter, Bhagavad Papa's commentary on 9th chapter, and also a few slokas from the 10th. The 10th chapter deals with the Vibhuti Yoga, that is about the manifestations of the Lord. We shall read the commentary, Papa's commentary on the 10th chapter today. Gives an idea of how the Lord manifests Himself as innumerable beings in the universe, and how the sadhaka is to recognize the Lord in them. The 10th chapter is termed here as the power of suzerainty. The 10th chapter begins with the idea of the highest supremacy and sovereignty of the Lord over all the lower gods and rishis. Remove that light. Remove that light completely. The Lord asserts that He is the source of everything in the universe. All the rishis, all the great souls have their source in the Lord Himself. Even these highly evolved souls cannot comprehend the mysterious ways by which the Lord projects Himself out at the universe and all its creatures and things. Even those rishis and highly evolved souls cannot have an idea as to how the Lord projects Himself as innumerable beings and creatures in this universe. That is the greatest mystery. That is because the Lord is the infinite originator of even the gods and the rishis. When they themselves are born from Him, how can they find out their own source? So that is the greatest mystery that cannot be unraveled by any who is in this universe. Though intuitively many sages and rishis have found out that the earth was created at such and such a time in this particular way and all that. That is only understanding intuitively. According to the Lord, it is still a mystery and nobody has found out the source. Here the Lord enumerates the various natures dominating the beings whom He has evolved out of Himself. That is not very important for us at this stage. We need not go into it. Now, He has described about the manifestation of the various names and forms and also different natures that are prevailing in the universe. Then comes the devotee, as he proceeds on the path of yoga, absorbs himself in the thought of God to such a degree that his entire life becomes illumined with the one consciousness of the Divine. Now, how to get at the source? That is the work of the devotee, that is the effort of the devotee. Now by his devotion to the Lord, forgetting everything about the manifestation, and his desire to enjoy anything in the manifestation, he strives to reach the source. By his effort, he loses himself in the thought of the God, of the divine, to such a degree that he forgets everything else in the consciousness of the divine. He forgets his body, he gets absorbed in the divine and sits for hours together. His only effort is to realize the divine and get himself merged in the divine consciousness. He takes joy in meditating upon the beloved and experiences delight in only talking about him and his greatness. To such a devotee, even when he is not sitting for meditation, absorbed in the divine, when he comes out to worldly consciousness, he is interested only in talking about the Lord and his greatness. He has nothing else to think of. He is not interested in anything else. Thus, united with the Lord through selfless adoration and love, this way he adores the Lord by talking about him, by glorifying him, by meditating on him. The devotee attaining perfect calmness becomes absorbed in the universal consciousness of God. By this practice, he becomes very pure in mind and heart and gets absorbed in the divine consciousness. The devotee who, seeking knowledge of the Atman, has dedicated himself to the Lord, receives divine grace, and his ignorance is dispelled by the light of pure knowledge. Now he wants to know all about God, the knowledge of God, so that his intellect may be illumined. So he dedicated his entire being to the Lord. Then he feels God's grace has come upon him and his ignorance is dispelled by the dawn of knowledge, by the dawn or the light of knowledge on him. Now the Lord describes how through utter devotion a soul realizes the Supreme Godhead. By mere devotion, utter devotion, one who dedicates his entire life for the sake of God. That is, God reveals himself in the devotee in all his greatness. He is explaining how the God experience comes to the devotee gradually. That is how God reveals himself in that person gradually. Such a devotee is the very incarnation of God. When God reveals himself in such a devotee, who becomes a pure and chosen vehicle for the Lord to work through, that revelation comes to him only when the instrument is properly prepared in the sense that he is 100% purified. The mind is perfectly purified, intellect is perfectly illumined. Then only God will reveal himself in that devotee. Once God reveals himself in him, that devotee becomes the embodiment of God himself. That is, such a devotee is the very incarnation of God, we can say. Then there is absolutely no difference between him and God, because God works through him completely. without any reservation. What is the difference between him and ordinary devotee then? An ordinary devotee is full of ego sins, and God's light, even when working through this devotee, works through the ego sins only. Ego, does not permit the full effect of the divine to work through that body. Ego takes upon itself the sense of doership. So when the power works through such a ignorant person, there is a tinge of selfishness in those acts, because it is coming through the ego. Somebody once asked, what is the difference, or how can we make out if it is the ego that is working through us or the divine that is working through us? To make out whether it is the ego that is working or the divine that is working, we have to find out, or the devotee himself can find out, how far he is purified for the divine to work through him. If he is not perfectly purified, it will be only the ego that is working through him. And when it is the ego that is working through him, naturally it may be not perfectly selfless. So the test is, if the actions are perfectly selfless, we can take it that it is the divine that is working through him. If there is any tinge of selfishness, it is the ego that is working. That is ego that is standing between the divine and the action. So when the devotee is perfectly purified and divine has taken possession of him, all his actions will be perfectly selfless and for the benefit of the mankind. Such a devotee is the very incarnation of God himself. He, the unborn, the original God, the one great abode of all that exists, who is the one eternal pure reality, assumes human form with all powers of the divine. When God is fully working through him, he has taken full possession of the devotee. He is considered an avatar of God himself, like the case of Sri Ramakrishna and many other saints who have purified themselves by their sadhana and have completely dedicated their life to the Lord, and the Lord has taken full possession of their bodies, are considered avatar by the Lord himself. Avatar has got another meaning also, which we'll talk later. The disciple accepts this grand truth. The great sages and such as Narada, Asishta, Devala and Vyasa, the devotees of the highest excellence and attainment, with words of inspiration extol him as the Supreme Lord manifest as man. All these great sages and saints also extol such a personality as the incarnation of God. That is, Lord himself as manifest as man. Now, the question arises about the Lord's all-pervading nature in the visible manifestations. Now again, we'll talk about this also. Another meaning of the incarnation is the Lord directly manifests himself or takes birth with all the divine qualities, as Rama, Krishna, and other cases also. There is absolutely no illusory power there. All the divine qualities start manifesting from the childhood itself. In the case of Rama and Krishna, they were even having celestial forms, not human forms when they took birth. They are also called avatars. Like that, innumerable avatars are mentioned in Srimad Bhagavata. So each, even a saint also, who has worked out his realization by sadhana and purified his mind, purified his intellect, and purified his body itself to become a vehicle of the Lord. And when Lord has taken full possession of him, he can also be called an avatar. Now the question arises about the Lord's all-pervading nature in the visible manifestations. The knowledge of this aspect of the Lord is not known even to the devas, that is, those who have developed the high quality of Sattva-guna. Neither it is known to those who possess a mixture of Sattva and Rajas. The secret of this manifestation is not known to anybody, even to the highly evolved souls. The complete comprehension of God is possible only by a perfect realization of Him as a Supreme Purushottama. The complete comprehension of God is possible only by a perfect realization of Him as the Supreme Purushottama. We can get a complete idea of the Lord only by realizing His aspect of Purusha and Prakriti together, which is called Purushottama, contains both the aspects and that transcends both. Hence, the knowledge and the knower are known to be one. Then there is no difference between the knower and the knowledge. They become one. There is only one at that time. Here the knowledge and the knower are known to be one. The object and the subject being one, the Lord alone can see Himself and can know Himself. When everything is He, everything is Brahman, all the creation, all the names and forms in the creation are only Brahman, and the eternal witness, that is substratum of the creation, is also Brahman. Who is seeing whom is the question. The Brahman is seeing Brahman. The process of seeing is also Brahman. So I have to put it the way, the Brahman is Brahmaning Brahman. There cannot be any other expression. Because everything is Brahman, the act of seeing is Brahman, the object is Brahman, the subject is Brahman. So what can be expressed? Words cannot express that, because there is only one. Purushottama is the root principle of all existences, master of all creatures, God of all gods, the one great controller of the universe. We're talking about Purushottama, the supreme being who is Purusha and Prakriti and beyond. He is the root principle of all existences, master of all creatures, God of all gods, the one great controller of the universe. There is nothing but He. He is at once the visible worlds with their multitudinous forms and varied changes and activities, and also the motionless, all-pervading, invisible and changeless Atman, and at the same time still beyond these aspects. He is at the same time Purushottama. If you want to take his understand his form, he is everything that is seen before us, everything in the universe, all the names and forms, and everything that we can think of. We can see with our naked eyes, everything that we can think of with our mind. That is the Prakriti, the created or the dynamic aspect of the divine. And also the Purusha, the substratum, the unseen or invisible, motionless, static aspect, all-pervading, changeless Atman. Both are together, and at the same time Purushottama is transcending both, that is both together and transcending both. That is the form of Purushottama. It is really unthinkable. We can think of the static aspect, that is changeless, more without any movement, without any change. But same, we can think of the aspect which is always moving, ever-changing, dynamic aspect. But we cannot think of that is at the same time moving and not moving. We can think of a serpent here which remains motionless. But we cannot think of the same as moving and not moving at the same time. That is what is happening with Purushottama. Purushottama is the entire universe as a manifestation, the substratum for the manifestation, that is a static aspect, and beyond both these aspects, that is Purushottama. In fact, every object that we see is a combination of the static and dynamic aspect of God, Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha is the Atman and Purushottama, Prakriti is the body, mind, intellect and the senses. Combination of both these form all beings and creatures. So he is at once the visible worlds with their multitudinous forms and varied changes and activity therein, and also the motionless, all-pervading, invisible and changeless Atman, and at the same time still beyond these aspects, beyond both these aspects. One aspect is the static, the other aspect is the dynamic. He is both together, same time, beyond both. It's called Purushottama. In the Gita also there is, in the Gita, the 15th chapter, will talk about the Purushottama Yoga. There he describes clearly what Purushottama is. Now Arjuna accepts the descent of the divine in human form, but desires to know his great attributes as the omnipresent truth. Arjuna accepts the descent of the divine in human form, but desires to know his great attributes as the omnipresent truth. Arjuna insists upon knowing the method of meditation by which the Lord can be realized as the all-pervading reality and further about the aspects in which the Lord has to be thought and meditated upon, as a request to Lord Krishna by Arjuna. After hearing so far the most elevating discourse of Sri Krishna, Arjuna craves for a more comprehensive teaching regarding the perfect yoga held forth by him. The Lord, after asserting that he, as the all-pervading Atman, is residing in the bosom of all creatures, and that he is the beginning, middle, and end of all these creatures, proceeds to describe his glories, particularly manifested in the most prominent objects and beings of his creation, who contribute to the harmonious working of his universal Leela. The Lord describes in detail what his manifestations are. Of course, there is nothing to describe about the all-pervading static aspect, but about the manifestations. How the devotees can think of the Lord in seeing the manifestations. He describes the various cosmic powers by which he makes himself manifest in his divine and spiritual forms, controlling the manifold forces of the universe. Here he describes, we are not going into detail here, describes about the whatever great thing we see in the manifestation, we should be able to see God in them. If there is among men, if there is somebody unusually intelligent, unusually strong, and unusually respected by others, we can say God is manifesting. Like that, any other object which is more prominently seen or more prominently noticed for its speciality among the objects of the same kind, we can say God is manifest in that. Say there are so many mountains in the world. Among them, Himalaya is considered to be the largest. So we can say there is divinity, divine manifestations in that. Though everything in the world is a manifestation of the divine, but for a sadhaka, he can find manifestation of divine in such big things, such important things, such unusual or rare things. Then he has to see the manifestation in everything. See, for example, we see so many human beings. We are not able to see the divine in all of them. But when we come to a saint and see how loving he is, how happy and blissful he is, how generous he is in giving help and blessing to others, we see something extraordinary in that person. Then we see the divine manifested in that person. Like that, divine manifestation can be seen in special things. Though even ordinary people are all manifestations of the divine only, but we cannot see the manifestation easily. Ultimately, we have to accept everything, even the so-called menial thing or useless, so-called useless thing, everything is divine manifestation only. That we will come to know after we start accepting, to start with saints as manifestations of the divine, as incarnations of the divine. So in brief we can say, he is the supreme almighty power that rules all the varied worlds and gods that preside over the innumerable forces that work in the universe. We accept so many gods in charge of so many activities going on in the universe. But the Supreme Lord He is the Purushottama only. He is the creator, protector and destroyer of the worlds. He is the primeval seed from which all creation has come into existence. There is nothing that exists which is not born of his power. In truth, there is no limit to his powers, and what could be expressed of him is nothing compared to his infinite glories. We talk about the glories of the Lord. We cannot even mention a small part of his glories. 1% of his glories cannot be expressed by us. In truth, there is no limit to his powers, and what could be expressed of him is nothing compared to his infinite glories. Whatever is mighty, splendid and glorious is only a spark of his infinite grandeur. Whatever is mighty, splendid and glorious is only a spark of his infinite grandeur. Is only a spark, not even a full manifestation. Is a spark of his grandeur. Lastly, the Lord concludes that verily the entire universe is formed and pervaded by one fragment of his unthinkably vast and limitless existence. Lastly, the Lord concludes that verily the entire universe is formed and pervaded by one fragment of his unthinkably vast and limitless existence. He is infinite and eternal, and the universe is only forming a small portion of his existence. Thus, the mind is flung from the particular and significant things into the eternal and all-inclusive being of the Lord. Our mind is thus made to expand to infinity. The presentation of universal view of God prepares the aspirant for the dazzling vision of the Lord, which is the theme of the ensuing chapter. Now, Arjuna is getting prepared to receive the teaching as described in the next chapter. Next chapter is the Vishwarupa Darshan. The Lord shows his real form to Arjuna. Till then, he was only explaining to Arjuna what his real form is. Now Arjuna wants to know and see the real form of the Lord. There he is explaining, or rather, Arjuna was given the divine vision as with an ordinary eye, with a naked eye, it is not possible to see the Lord's universal form. We shall read a few verses in the next chapter. May that you can have a look at it, chapter 10. Chapter 10. No, chapter 11. Chapter 11. Chapter 11, we are not reading all the verses, important verses. Number 12, verse number 12. At the request, verse number 12, at the request of Arjuna, Lord Krishna agreed to give him show him his universal form, for which the Lord also gave Arjuna divine vision. Arjuna, after seeing this is not said by Arjuna, but Sanjaya says, if the splendor of 1,000 suns were to blaze forth all at once in the sky, that would be like the splendor of that Mahatma, of that Lord. That was what was reported when the Lord showed himself in his real form. If the splendor of 1,000 suns were to blaze forth all at once in the sky, that would be like the splendor of that Mahatma, means great Lord. That was reported by Sanjaya. The unknown has to be inferred here, citing the known as the pattern. Even then the inference can only be vague. We cannot explain the Lord's splendor. What Sanjaya reported here is only something nearest to that. What he really saw could not be explained. How can we understand? Even we cannot understand one sun's splendor. If 1,000 suns come together, how can we express that? How can an eye see that? So that is the way things are expressed. There, in the body of the God of gods, Arjuna then saw the whole universe with its many divisions drawn together into one. There, in the body of the God of gods, that is, body of Krishna, Pandava means Arjuna, then saw the whole universe with its many divisions drawn together into one. As soon as Sri Krishna showed him what? The first thing that struck him was the splendor. That was equivalent to 1,000 suns coming together, blazing at the same time. Then Arjuna saw the entire universe in the body of Sri Krishna. Here the commentator says, unity in variety is the plan of nature. The cosmic life is manifesting itself as the celestials, as the human beings, as animals, as birds, as the vegetable kingdom and other species. These are all expressions of the same consciousness. The celestial world, the terrestrial world, the nether world, these are all regions intended for enjoyment of various kinds, and each region has its own objects of enjoyment. All these are contained in Ishvara, who is the life of lives. This is how the unity in variety is made possible. All these are seen in the form, in the body of Lord Krishna. The whole universe is seen together. Now with our naked eye, we are able to see only a few meters or even a few miles before us. Our vision cannot reach beyond that. But with a divine vision, if we are able to see the entire universe as one unit, and everything in the universe is seen at the same time, means what is going on here? Satsang is going on here, bhajan is going on there, so many things are going on there. People in the market are purchasing things, selling things there. There's a hospital there. And like that, so many things are going on in the universe. If all these are seen together, People cannot stand that sight. That is why, as soon as Arjuna saw this sight, he was practically unnerved. He wanted more strength to face it. Seeing this, Sanjay again says, then Arjuna, struck with amazement, his hair standing on end, bending down here to the Lord in adoration, spoke with joined palms. He was completely awe-stricken, as they say, and then addressed the Lord. Arjuna said, I see all the gods, O God, in your body, and hosts of all grades of beings, Brahma the Lord, seated on the lotus, and all the rishis and celestial serpents. Arjuna describes what all things he saw in the body of Lord Krishna. I see all the gods in your body, and hosts of all grades of beings, Brahma the Lord seated on the lotus, and all the rishis and celestial serpents. He describes in detail what he saw. I behold you, infinite in forms, on all sides, with countless arms, stomachs, mouths and eyes. Neither your end, nor the middle, nor the beginning do I see, O Lord of the universe, O universal form. He again said, I behold you, infinite in forms. I saw you as Krishna only in one form. Now, when you show me this universal form, I see infinite in form. I see you in infinite in forms. Means innumerable forms are seen in you on all sides, with countless arms, countless stomachs, countless mouths and countless eyes. And I cannot see your end, nor the middle, nor the beginning, because it is infinite. I cannot say where you begin from, where you end. You cannot see up or down, everywhere you are. Then Arjuna continues, you are the imperishable, the supreme being to be realized. You are the great treasure house of this universe. You are the imperishable guardian of the eternal Dharma. You are the ancient Purusha, I deem. You are the imperishable, the supreme being to be realized. You are the great treasure house of this universe. You are the imperishable guardian of the eternal Dharma. You are the ancient Purusha. He goes on glorifying the Lord with the vocabulary he had been blessed by the Lord himself. And Arjuna continues, I see you without beginning, middle or end, infinite in power, of infinite arms, the sun and the moon being your eyes, the burning fire your mouth, heating the whole universe with your radiance. Goes on describing again what he saw. I see you without beginning. He tried to see the beginning and the end of that form. He could not see. So he said, I see you without beginning, without middle, or without end. You are infinite in power. You have got infinite arms. The sun and moon being your eyes. The burning fire, your mouth. Can you imagine? Bring before us that universal form that was standing before Arjuna. Arjuna continues, this space between heaven and earth and all the quarters are filled by you alone. When it is the infinite form, naturally there is nothing that can be outside that. Everything is filled by that form only. So the Krishna, the small human form that he saw, has now become infinite, that is filling the everything that he can think of. Nothing is outside him. The space between heaven and earth and all the quarters are filled by you alone. Having seen this, your marvelous and terrible form, the three worlds are trembling with fear. The three worlds are also included in him. Arjuna says that all the three worlds are trembling with fear. And there Arjuna sees now what is going on in the universal form of the Lord. These hosts of devas, he sees celestial beings there. All these indeed enter into you. Some in awe extol you with joined palms. Bands of great rishis and siddhas pronounce, may it be well, and praise you with sublime hymns. He sees celestials and rishis extolling the Lord within the Lord himself. Means everything is contained in the Lord. So Arjuna sees devas and the rishis extolling the Lord by hymns. Seeing your immeasurable form with myriad mouths and eyes, with myriad arms, thighs and feet, with myriad stomachs, and terrible with myriad tusks, the worlds are terror-struck. And now Arjuna says, terror-struck, and so am I. Arjuna says he sees innumerable arms, innumerable thighs and feet, with innumerable stomachs, and terrible, innumerable tusks. Seeing this, all the worlds are awe-stricken. So am I, he says, I am also awe-stricken. Because it is terrible to see so many arms and so many mouths and so many stomachs at the same time. The Lord Krishna, Arjuna says, when I see you touching the sky, blazing with many colors, with mouths wide open, with large eyes, my heart trembles in fear, and I find neither courage nor peace. Arjuna was actually trembling with fear. Now he again tells the Lord, when I see you touching the sky, he is beginningless and endless. He cannot say where he can see his head and where he can see his feet. Still he is addressing him. When I see you touching the sky, blazing with many colors, with mouths wide open, with large fiery eyes, my heart trembles in fear, and I find neither courage nor peace. He is explaining his pitiable condition, whereas he should have enjoyed seeing the Lord's universal form, but he was stricken with fear. Even Arjuna, who was prepared by the Lord himself to see the universal form, was terribly afraid when he actually saw the universal form of the Lord. So many devotees tell their gurus, I want to have universal vision. I want to see the Lord alone everywhere. They think that it is so easy to have that vision and that they can stand that vision. But those who saints tell them, you first prepare yourself for that vision. Purify your heart, purify your mind, and then you will be able to stand that vision. Otherwise it will be impossible to stand that vision. And in one case it seems Sri Ramakrishna had told, when such a vision comes to somebody, before he is fully prepared, it will be like an elephant entering a small hut. What will happen to the hut? It will be broken to pieces. The elephant will enter all right, but hut cannot stand it. So our preparation must be to enlarge our heart and purify our mind so that the elephant experience can easily enter and take possession of our heart. I think we will stop here today and continue this universal vision tomorrow. Om Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Om Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram.
I just click